Alright, in this video we're going to take a look at how to graph a function using a table of values. And this is something that is kind of a fallback method for any graph. We're going to focus in this one on graphs that make straight lines, but any function you can graph this way. It just isn't your fastest, it isn't the quickest and easiest method, and sometimes it takes a long time to figure out what the function is going to look like doing this. But if you have something relatively simple like a straight line, well, it doesn't take very much effort to figure out that that's the pattern. So I'm going to show you this way, and then we'll build on some shortcuts in later lessons. Okay, to graph with a table of values, we're going to basically just take our x-coordinate, okay, from this function right here, and we are going to just pick some numbers for it. Make sure you pick easy numbers. What's easiest to calculate with? Well, how about 0, 1, 2? There's some fairly simple numbers. Now, to get the y-coordinates that match up with them, well, I'm going to have to use this function right here, and I'm going to plug in some of those numbers that I just picked instead of x, and I'm going to see what happens. So let's try this one time. Y equals -2 times something plus 5. Now that something in this case is going to be a 0. So if I work this out, -2 times 0, right there, that's going to be 0. 0 plus 5 gives me 5. Okay, and that gives me 1 point. I have an x and a y coordinate. That gives me like an address, a location on the graph. 0 on the x-axis, which means I don't move left or right, and 5 on the y-axis. There's my beginning point. Now my next step is going to be, well, I hope I can find another one the same way. -2 times something plus 5. Okay, and that something in this case happens to be a 1. Now when I calculate that, -2 times 1 is -2, and -2 plus 5 gives me +3. So 1, 3 is another location. I'm going to go to 1 on the x-axis and 3 on the y-axis. And there's my next point. Okay, and it looks like it's going to be a straight line, kind of diagonal coming downward, but I'm going to check my third point to make sure that my pattern is correct. If it is, they should all line up. So I'm going to go down here and do y equals -2 times something plus 5. Okay, and that something in this case is 2. That's the number I picked. Okay. -2 times 2 is -4. And -4 plus 5 gives me +1. So here's my third point. Now if all three of those line up, I'm thinking I've got the right pattern. So 2 over 2 and up 1. This is where it ends up, and it looks to me like my pattern is correct. It's going to be a straight line that goes like that. Now there's certainly some shortcuts to take with these. This isn't the only way to graph, but it's kind of our fundamental starting point. And then from here we'll learn how to make some quicker assessments based on what the function looks like. But this is a great thing to fall back on. If you ever get turned around, this will always get you the correct shape.